Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I'm redoing this live stream on Rihanna, and I'll explain why in a second. But for those of you who aren't familiar with the situation, Rihanna decided that she was not going to perform during the Super Bowl. She received an offer to perform, and she decided to reject that offer to voice her support for Colin Kaepernick. So basically, she said, "Well, I'm not going to support this offer because of how the NFL is treating Colin Kaepernick." And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Colin Kaepernick situation, I think by now most people are, but just for information, Colin Kaepernick played with the NFL football team, um, and basically he decided not to stand during the playing of the national anthem. Instead, he would just sit in the stands. He would remain sitting while they played the national anthem. And the reason why he did this was in protest against police brutality. Later on, he began to kneel instead of remaining seated. So this has caused a lot of controversy. A lot of people thought he was not being patriotic. They were condemning him for protesting in this way. And later, he left that particular football team. uh, I think it's the San Francisco 49ers. He left that team, and he became a free agent. And since then, no other NFL team has picked him up because of that protest. Now, he recently filed a complaint against the NFL, alleging that the teams of the NFL have been colluding against him, by preventing him from getting an opportunity to play for any of the teams. Now, there have been football players with less qualifications than him, not as good of a record as him, but they have managed to be recruited and hired by football teams. So this is a deliberate attempt to basically crucify this brother and persecute this brother for expressing his views on police brutality, for staging his protest. They are trying to make an example out of him. They're trying to make him into a whipping boy, to basically put these black players in line. And then you have one team, for instance, I think it's the Dallas Cowboys, where they were basically told that they have to stand during the playing of the national anthem. And, the coach won't tolerate them, protesting at all during the playing of the national anthem. So you have this tension, and now this brother has this complaint against the NFL, and Rihanna, instead of doing what a lot of people would do, which is sell out and just perform for the NFL, do the Super Bowl, this sister decided to take a principled stand and decided not to do so. Now, in my earlier video, I mentioned that she would have lost, she had a chance to earn a lot of money performing. She had a chance to make millions of dollars and all that kind of stuff. But as someone pointed out in my comment section, they indicated that the NFL doesn't actually pay the performers to perform during the halftime show at the Super Bowl. They pay for their production costs and all that stuff, but they don't pay those performers. So, in terms of her losing compensation directly from the NFL, that won't happen. Even if she were to play, she would not her decision not to play to perform doesn't result in her losing substantial amounts of money in terms of the actual performance itself. So I just had to come on here and correct that aspect of the hangout that I did before. But even though the NFL is not paying her, it's possible that she could get compensation in other types of ways. It's possible that such a performance will generate even more revenue for her, even more. Even though she's a superstar already, it will generate great publicity for her. If she has some upcoming project, it's free advertising for her. It has great value, even if it's not like direct monetary value that somebody's paying out cash for. It still has value in terms of the attention that it brings, whether it helps promote her just as an artist or helps promote some upcoming project. It still has value. And also, it lets a whole bunch of people that may not be familiar with her as an artist be exposed to her as an artist, and they may be potential purchasers of her new music and stuff. So it does have value, and it is a sacrifice, even though the NFL would not be directly paying her millions of dollars. The exposure that she gets, that she would have gotten from that performance does have great value, and I'm sure it exceeds millions of dollars. It has value because, the mere fact that you have advertisers who are willing to pay millions of dollars to advertise during the Super Bowl just tells you the value of the time, the exposure and all that kind of stuff. So it does have value, even though it's not like a cash payout of millions of dollars. So it is a sacrifice, either way you look at it. And the fact that this sister could sacrifice that, you know, is a great thing. It's great that this sister had the courage to sacrifice it. And then also, there's sacrifice in terms of how the public perceives you. We saw what happened with Nike when they decided to run those ads featuring Colin Kaepernick. You had people actually burning their sneakers and burning their Nike gear and all that kind of stuff in protest. And you actually had some officials protesting as well. So I think that it is a sacrifice. It is a form of courage, whether or not the NFL is directly paying her millions of dollars or not. And, the fact that that sister could sacrifice for that, it should be an example to us. I mean, again, as I said in the prior live stream, um, you know, our elders and ancestors, they sacrificed, for basic things like for the right to sit anywhere on a bus. Our brothers and sisters, our ancestors, they decided, well, I will forego riding the bus. I will go without the convenience of public transportation to demand my human dignity, to demand respect. So for over a year, you had people walking to work, you had people carpooling to work, people making sacrifices. And today, unfortunately, too many of us are not willing to make any kind of sacrifices at all. You know, what's not watching the game? And I understand a lot of people love football, and it is a sacrifice in terms of your entertainment, but that sacrifice is so minute and insignificant in the big scheme of things. But yet and still, people aren't even willing to make that sacrifice. They are still watching the football game, still supporting the NFL. I go on my Facebook and I see all these people talking about their various football games they're watching and stuff like that. So I think that it just shows a lack of commitment. It shows a lack of dedication, and it just shows how like weak-willed a lot of our people are, and like how they just not informed because the NFL, by persecuting this brother, they are persecuting black people because this brother was making a point about police brutality. Police brutality is a very real issue in this country. You have many black men being killed by these police, black men and women being killed by police, and brutalized by the police, harassed by the police, and too often there is no justice in these cases. And while this kind of brutality continues, people have the audacity to talk about this the land of the free and the home of the brave when they still treat black people like second-class citizens. So I understand this brother's protest very well. And by, persecuting this brother for speaking out on these issues, the NFL is making it clear that our issues, our concerns are not a priority. They're making it clear that they will punish black players who are outspoken on these very important issues. How does it hurt the NFL for a single man to decide to kneel during the playing of the national anthem? How does that hurt anybody? It's a nonviolent protest. It's not disrespect towards any soldiers or towards the national anthem. It's simply bringing attention to an issue that needs attention. So I commend the sister Rihanna, and I think that by engaging in this type of protest, she is bringing more attention to this issue, and that's a great thing. So with that, I'm gonna say peace and blessings to the couple of people that tuned in. I know it's early. Shout out to my man, Psycho. Shout out to Virgo Life. So somebody said, well, what if it's hurting their business? Like maybe that's why. I guess you're suggesting that that's why the NFL is, basically colluding to keep this brother from getting a job because these NFL protests are hurting their business. I don't think it's hurting their business at all. Like in terms of, well, in terms of the white audience that doesn't like these protests. I mean, they are continuing to watch the games. They're not saying, well, I'm not watching the game because these black guys are protesting. But it will hurt them. It will continue to hurt them if they don't treat this brother, just Colin Kaepernick, with justice. If they don't treat him fairly and the way he deserves to be treated, that will hurt them because you have many black people like myself who are not watching the games because of this treatment of Colin Kaepernick. Many people aren't watching the games, and they've talked about how the revenues are down, and that's a direct result of how they're treating this brother Colin Kaepernick. And they should just hire this brother, man. I'm sure he has skills that surpass many other people that have been hired and picked up by these teams. So there is no excuse for this blackballing of Colin Kaepernick, this persecution of his brother, this crucifixion of this brother. So I just think it's inexcusable, man. And I'm not a big football person, but there are games that I want to watch. Like as I said in the live stream before, like the game against with the Ravens versus the Steelers. That's a big rivalry in Baltimore. Like the Steelers is one of the teams that we really have a lot of rivalry with and all that kind of stuff. So if this boycott wasn't going on, I would have watched that game. I would have watched the game between the Ravens and the Redskins and all that kind of stuff. And there are other games that I'm interested in watching, even though I don't follow football like some people. So it's a very tiny sacrifice for me. And I really appreciate and respect those who are really enthusiastic football players who have decided not to watch football. And I know plenty of those people. So if the NFL is concerned about, losing money, they need to support this brother Colin Kaepernick and pick him up on one of these teams. And I hope the brother ultimately prevails in this case. They tried to dismiss it, but it was allowed to go forward. So with that, I'm gonna close out. I want to thank y'all for tuning in again. I just had to get on here and correct the earlier live stream that I did because I don't like having false information on any of my live streams or my videos. I want to make sure that I'm providing accurate information, and I want to thank the commenters who informed me that people don't get paid to perform during the Super Bowl. I did not know that at all. So I'm glad to correct the record. And if you notice something that's just wrong on one of my videos, I'm not saying like a difference of opinion. I'm saying something that is factually wrong or inaccurate. Please let me know because I want to make sure that I'm putting out accurate information on my channel. And that's how we have to be. We need to make sure that we're providing the people with the correct information. And I'm going to do one more live stream after this before I start getting ready for some meetings that I have today. So y'all look out for that. That's going to be about voting. And I'm basically going to be talking about why we must vote. So I'll get into that. I'm not going to even get started talking about that right now, but I'm going to get into it in a few minutes. Then I have to get ready for these sessions that I have this morning. I'm on the clock even though it's Saturday. So yeah, I want to thank y'all for your support. Let me look at the last couple of comments before I sign out. Yeah, the numbers are down because of the boycott. That's why the numbers are down, believe me. I mean, there are plenty of people that aren't watching the games because of the boycott. Yeah, so Psycho said ticket sales is what hurts these owners. The ratings will still be there. The protest should be with money, no games, no gear. Exactly. Like, I mean, it goes beyond just like, you know, not watching on television. It goes into like buying NFL gear. Like a lot of people will buy Like for instance, in Baltimore, people buy Ravens jerseys and Ravens hats and other types of Raven gear. That generates money for the team and for the NFL. And if people just stop buying that stuff and stop attending those games, that is one way you can really have an impact. But people are so wrapped up into sport and play, man. It's like they don't even think about politics or about these very important issues. I mean, they're living in a superficial on a superficial level, man. They're not going deep with things at all. You know, a lot of these people are still caught up in the matrix and stuff, man. So they don't get it. So they just caught up in entertainment and stuff like that. And it's a shame, man. It's a shame that they would allow you got these people that sit back and allow this stuff to happen to their brother, because the way they're treating him just shows you how they devalue issues that matter to us. The issue of black lives. They're telling you basically that black lives don't mean anything to these people. But yet you're okay with that. You're okay with allowing them to persecute this brother for standing up for that important issue. You're okay with that. You're going to give money to these people, and then you wonder why you're disrespected. I mean, black people make up most of the players on a lot of the players on these teams, if not a substantial percentage of the players on those football teams are black men, and black people support the NFL. Like black people go to the games, black people watch the games. So they truly value black people and black dollars. They would not treat this brother Colin Kaepernick like this for speaking out on important black issues. So yeah, so let's see. Yeah, so Psycho pointed out that the NFL has a blackout rule. If the stadium is less than 80% full, the game is blacked out in the local area. The NFL cares about ticket sales. Not going to the games hurts them more. Yeah, so that's what we need to do, man. Not just not watching and stuff like that, but not going to the games. Um, and I know that some people have said, well, black people don't even go to the games like that, so we're not really having an impact. But there are plenty of black people that go to football games. I know plenty of people that pay and get season tickets and all that good stuff. So I don't buy that. I think that there's enough black people that actually attend those games to actually make a difference, man. If every single black person said, I'm not watching a single game, I'm not going to a single game, I'm not buying a single NFL item until they do right by their brother Colin Kaepernick, believe me, there would be a difference. And I think that Rihanna, by taking this stand, she's helping to set a tone. Because often in this society that's fixated on celebrities, celebrities have more influence than a lot of these political leaders. They have more influence than, you know, political speakers on social media. I mean, Rihanna probably had, I don't know how many followers she has on Twitter or whatever, but I'm sure she has millions of followers on Twitter and Instagram. What she says matters. It has an impact, and I'm glad this woman chose to use her voice in a powerful way to make a difference. And I hope that people like her will be more outspoken, like in support of movements against police brutality and all that kind of stuff, and just go beyond this simple gesture, but get more engaged. More engaged, not only by making statements on social media, but by putting your dollars behind grassroots organizations that are truly committed to addressing these issues. So yeah, before I go, Um, I'm going to read Psycho's statement. Let's see. Yeah, so Psycho's basically saying that there are a lot of black people that go to the games and stuff like that. Um, Yeah, so yeah, we can have an impact. So with that, I'm gonna say peace and blessings to y'all. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. I'm doing one more live stream before I start to get ready for some important workshops. So with that, I'm gonna say peace.